Alright guys, today we're gonna be reacting to on this video why there's no German mafia in the United States history. Couldn't just record because I was moving. This is my new place. A couple things look very similar, but it's not similar. It's a different apartment. Even the angle that you guys can see, it's a little bit in the different side. So we're gonna try our best to make sure we can keep the show running. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you so much for everything you guys done. I'm still here. I'm just, I finished just from moving. Hopefully we're gonna get back on track, right? Thank you so much. I'm gonna leave the links for the Discord down below, and that way you guys can just follow and just keep recommending these videos. In the meantime, guys, let's jump in. Let's just get this show starting.
Irish, Russians, Jews, Mexicanos. Throughout U.S. history, every minority group in America has established a formidable mafia at one time, except one: the Germans. So why was there never a German mafia in American history? You may have never noticed, but the lack of a German mafia is a curious gap in American history, as logically it definitely should exist. You see, between 1840 and 1890, the Germans were the largest single ethnic group immigrating to the United States. For over 50 years, millions of Germans washed ashore in New York and Boston like algae overgrowing a warm lake. Indeed, during several key battles of the U.S. Civil War, native Germans speaking zero English filled out entire regiments in the Union Army. The 52nd of New York, 9th of Iowa, and 74th Pennsylvania, to name just a few. So vast were the waves of German bodies crashing on America's shores every year that of approximately 516,000 Union soldiers, 200,000 were born in the German Confederation. And after the war, it did not stop. Between 1880 and 1890, another 1,500,000 Germans immigrated to the US, by this time forcing the Garfield administration to grapple assimilating the largest share of foreign-born people in the United States in her entire history. And only 3 years later, by 1893, over 800 in the United States every month. It may seem hard to believe now, but more Germans fled Europe for America than Irish and Italians combined. By 1930, really? 1 in 10 U.S. citizens were German Americans, and mafias had spread their roots deep into American society. You see, at the dawn of the 20th century, there were many lucrative mafias, including the Cosa Nostra, Italian, the Kosher Nostra, Jewish, the Hudson Mobsters, Irish, the Purple Gang, Jewish, the West Side Mob, Irish, and Mafia.
Солнцевская братва.
Bingo. However, crucially, there were no sauerkraut kids. Despite vast, overwhelming immigration and a shared sense of cultural identity, or language at least, the Germans never developed a mafia in the United States.
Interesting.
Why?
Right.
Well, the answer is unclear. It's never been studied. ChatGPT won't give you a good answer. However, from our investigation, German-American immigrants can be divided into 2 categories. During the 19th century, when millions of German speakers were traveling to the New World, the majority were Southern Germans from rural farms, while a minority were Northern German political exiles, like the 48ers. And once they arrived in the U.S., rather than settling in port cities in New York and Boston,
they went to the outskirts.
They instead chose to move largely west of the Appalachians. Germans chose farming in newly created states like Ohio, Indiana, and Wisconsin. This unique decision led early Germans to live largely excluded from America's new developing industrial city life. And as the Germans primarily worked on large farms, it meant new German immigrants lived large physical distances from other German immigrants. And this trend continued well into the 1900s.
You know what's crazy? It's still like that too. You go to these places in the Midwest, it's like that. They all are, and you can tell, they like to just live very apart from each other. It's weird.
Until many rural towns were primarily German-speaking and culturally Protestant. A map of demographics in 2023 shows how this unique German migration pattern birthed and primarily shaped what we now call the American Midwest, a region culturally distinct from other parts of America. While Irish and Italian Americans densely clustered around Boston and Russian Jews set up in New York and later Florida, Germans at the time chose to spread thinly over a vast area of the Republic. And this decentralized life made it less likely a family or families could seize power and set up a centralized economic structure like the Mafia. Additionally, because Germans, compared to other Europeans, earned their living from farming and rural trade far away from the epicenter of American industry, it's likely they didn't experience the extreme levels of discrimination their Irish and Italian brothers did, like being cut out of labor jobs. Therefore, they likely felt less of a necessity to organize into
By who? English? Well, there were not a lot of English. But Dutch, there were not a lot of Dutch. Discriminated by who? The Italian American population is very good. It's very big, so none of this stuff makes sense sometimes. I'm telling you.
Hierarchies like the Italians and Irish did in order to open illicit businesses where they could earn a living in the city and provide for their families, and the more libertarian markets like gambling, drug running, prostitution, and racketeering. But finally, the total lack of a German mafia could rest on perception, as outside Chicago, all major American cities during the Gilded Age were located on the East Coast. And since metropolitan life took place far away from the heartland, what nefarious activities did occur 1,000 miles away on the Great Lakes or Great Plains were of little concern to the average American, let alone the wealthy, prior to the automobile, telephone, or radio. It's likely any German criminal organizations that did occur went less documented by newspapers and police, as at the time these institutions existed mainly in large cities, where the Irish, Italians, Jews were already attracting focus and operating. Indeed, almost as a corollary to the millions of poor Germans settling the Midwest, the rich, educated Germans did prefer the cities. People like Albert Einstein, Fritz Lang, Marlene Dietrich, Hans Hofmann, Walter Kroppes, Kurt Weill, Franz Boas, Max Weber. Again, however, these German immigrants faced less discrimination to earning a living, as they were able to write or teach for a living rather than forced to sell their labor. Over time, this meant the German-American organization that did occur in the United States was often frequently more political than economic, a la Mafia in nature. By the 1930s, German-American thinkers and writers had had more time to unify their brethren on political or scientific causes, like teaching physics at the University of Chicago, brewing beer in Milwaukee, or goose-stepping in New York City. Ironically, in a comic twist of fate, in the U.S.,
I did not know that. They were just walking with a swastika in New York, huh?
Mafia that beat Germans senseless during Adolf Hitler's rise to power. You see, by 1930, 12 million German immigrants lived in the U.S., and some 1 in 500 were active members of the German-American Bund. The Bund thrived as a national organization that supported Adolf Hitler and pledged allegiance to the new Reich. And on a crisp day in October 1938, many American Nazis marched excitedly to a rally on New York's Upper East Side, the heart of the historic German town in New York City. After the American Bund Nazi rally finished, members gathered into a swastika-laden ballroom to hear Albert Kuhn, a fervent Hitler supporter, deliver what would have been, I'm sure, a pathos-invoking speech. But it never happened. According to news reports at the time, a Mr. Mayor Lansky and his Jewish gangster friends, along with a group called Murder Inc., quietly arrived at the rally, broke into 3 groups, and surrounded the building. As Kuhn gathered his notes to give his talk, 5 Jewish gangsters entered the ballroom's 2nd floor, while 5 more waited outside with pool cues and baseball bats. In the back of the room, Mr. Lansky and his Jewish men entered.
That is so all New York. Still, man, when you go to some businesses in New York, in the deli stores or even the restaurants, they have a baseball bat right on the back of the business store. It's just crazy. They will pull out that baseball bat. It's still a thing.
Listened briefly to the Nazi speech and then unleashed mayhem. A first-hand witness of the event said men who knew how to march were fighting men who knew how to hurt. Quickly scattered about lay injured Nazis everywhere. Some lay unconscious from being pummeled in the head. The gangsters' only agreement with the New York police was apparently not to kill anyone, a goal they only barely accomplished. After beating one Bund member semi-conscious, members of Murder Inc. tossed the man out a 2nd-story window. It seems farming and philosophy would only take German Americans so far in this life. So the absent German mafia in American history is a curious question without a single answer. Nonetheless, German immigrants' unique migration patterns and economic background, being mainly farmers, thinkers, or Nazis, rather than laborers, likely led to less of a need for organized crime, and therefore
because they were making a living.
If you found this video as interesting as I did researching it, please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Yeah, it makes sense because they already knew the skills they needed to just survive. A lot of these other people, they just, I don't want to say lazy, but are Irish people, right? Irish, well, they were part of the war, and also the long heritage with the British. They were just concentrating in one area, especially in Massachusetts or New England area. But the Germans, they already have the skill to just farm, so they used it and utilized it. That's what it was. Let me know what you guys think about this, and what do you think about the fact that there was absence of mafia in the United States when it comes down to the Germans? Maybe you guys have an answer for that. Meantime, guys, I will see you in the next one.